You are listening to the Pencil and Paper Podcast Network.
Hey Ramblers, today's episode is brought to you by Fangoria. Since 1979, Fangoria has been the authority in the world of contemporary horror. As the only sanctuary for horror aficionados in its early days, it has now grown into an empire that expands beyond its celebrated magazine. From t-shirts, coffee mugs, beanies, enamel pins, there's something for every horror fanatic in your world, even if it's you. So head on over to shop.fangoria.com/pencil and paper productions or use code pencil and paper productions at checkout to get 20% off your first order or magazine subscription. Yes, it is a mouthful, which is why there are links in the show notes down below. That's shop.fangoria.com/pencil and paper productions or code pencil and paper productions at checkout for 20% off. Fangoria, first in fright since 1979.
Buy it or we'll tear your soul apart.
You're listening to the Horror Ramblings podcast, the show about all things horror. We hope you enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Horror Ramblings podcast, your show for all things horror. The show with the host with the most, Lester and Steven. Those guys that you just cannot help but enjoy listening to. At least that's what I'm going to tell myself. This is Les, as always. How are you today, Steven?
I'm doing all right. Got my mostest going, I suppose.
You know, it's one of them mornings. But you will be happy with what I'm going to tell you real quick. I'll let you do the news stuff because I'm sure you have some news things that you want to say. But I'll come back to this later. But I want to just say, freshly this morning, I just finished it before we got on here. I finally watched Godzilla Minus One.
All right.
And I might have cheated a little bit. The Netflix version has the dub on it.
Well, let me interject for a moment and say you're okay, because as we watched it our second time, Katrina did ask to watch the dubbed version because she's like, I feel like I wasn't keeping track of everything with the subtitle. I understand it. If you can do it, my only concern is I was worried it wouldn't be as impactful.
Yeah.
And to a degree, I think I was right, but I will give them credit for doing a decent dub. They didn't phone it in. Whoever were doing the dub overs, they didn't phone it in. I will say, and I'll kind of agree with this, there was a line changed in the dub at the very end. It was Noriko's last words to I can't remember his name. I want to call him Shikamaru, but I'm like, that's the wrong thing, man.
Yeah, I'm bad with names because I just watched it, and I'll be referring to people as the main guy and the main girl.
Yeah,
that's what I'll be doing the whole time.
But her last line to him was, "Is your war over?" in the Japanese dub, which meant, a lot. If you know the movie, if you know the story, that's a very impactful sentence or question for someone in his position, because it's not about his war with Godzilla, it's his internal struggles, things like that. So it's a very deep question for that character.
Yeah.
And she did not say that in the dub. So I can understand why some people would be a little frustrated by that.
She said something along those lines, but it wasn't that exactly.
Exactly. So the way, whatever she said didn't hit the same way. So
and I'll be honest, when I watched it, there were some scenes, and I know this might sound weird, while I'm watching it for the first time, there were some scenes that I was like, I want to go back and watch this, but watch it without the dub. Mm-hmm. And so I went back and I had the subtitles on and I rewatched some scenes just to see if the impact of those scenes was different. Definitely made a difference. I feel like if you want to watch it and be able to follow it, because let's be honest, sometimes subtitles are hard to follow, and I understand. Even the fastest of readers, you feel like you're focusing too much on the subtitles, and it's taken away. So I would just tell people, if you want to watch it dubbed the first time, watch it dubbed. Then go back and watch it with subtitles. And it'll be almost like you're watching a different movie. Not completely, but in certain aspects. And I feel like that really adds to it. It's just like The Train to Busan. The first time I watched that, I watched it with subtitles. then they had a dub available. I watched it with the dub. I will give them credit there. I feel like whoever did the dub of that, they didn't oversell it. I feel like they did a really good job at staying true to the source material, not trying to, go over the top or anything like this, Another thing I want to say real quick, and then, like I said, I want to come back to Minus One and just say a few things. But one thing that I thought was cool, a little piece of trivia that I thought was really interesting, is instead of creating a new roar for Godzilla in Minus One, I guess they actually took the original recording from the very first Godzilla movie and they just amplified it, which I think is awesome.
I noticed that I was kind of surprised by that a little bit because that's what they did in Shin Godzilla. They went back to the original source roar. And I thought that was kind of an interesting choice, especially with the way that creature looked.
Yeah.
It made it more unsettling, I think, for me.
Yeah.
Because that sound is just so unnatural, and seeing it in such a creature that looks so grotesque just really added to it. So I was surprised that they stuck with that in this, because I still feel like it works.
Yeah. It's one of those things, I think, where it's the old adage, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
It works.
I mean, I'll admit, because if you're a fan of the character and the series and you've seen the movies over the decades, he's had variations. Even the American version has a variation of the roar that we're all familiar with, the sound. We all know the sound that he makes. It's very specific. However, they're just different variations. And I think the one they introduced in The Return of Godzilla in 1984 is probably my favorite. There's just something about it. It's a little bit more guttural, I guess. And it just, I don't know, it just has a power behind it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it sounds vicious.
Yeah.
So, but again, I think this is probably a close second to that I like.
Yeah. You know what? Before we get into everything, screw it. I'm just going to say the things that I want to say about Minus One. I did thoroughly enjoy it. I think that if you're not a Godzilla fan, you still owe it to yourself to watch this movie. The actor Simon Pegg, I just saw a review that he gave about the film, and he talked about how it was the original creators of Godzilla going back to the source material, discussing the traumas that they faced in history, metaphorically, through Godzilla, and this film was a perfect example of that. And I kept thinking about what you had said when you first told me about it. It's a war drama that Godzilla just so happens to be in. And I'm sitting there, and I've never felt this attached to characters in a Godzilla movie.
Exactly.
Ever. And spoiler warning for anybody that's listening, because I'm going to ruin parts of the movie. Screw it. I'm just going to do it because I want to talk about it. When Godzilla is attacking the city, and, they do a great job of showing him, getting his wits about him. He's up on land. He's not familiar with this. There's even a part, I think, where he's turning and his tail hits something. And the first time he does it, he realizes, oh, my tail can destroy stuff out here. And then the next thing you know, he's learning and he's adapting, and he's then using his tail to try to destroy things. And he's just tearing the whole city up. I mean, it's terrible. But we've got our main guy and we've got our main woman. I'm bad with names. I'm not going to keep struggling to remember names. I'm just going to call them that. I have never hoped so much that someone would have just tackled someone into an alley. When she pushed him and that blast blew her back, everything in me had hoped that she would have just pushed him and gone back with him when it happened. But I understand that needed to happen. And then I was genuinely happy at the end of the movie when he finds out that she's still alive. Like, I was genuinely happy. Like, some people that might have ruined it. Like, if they wouldn't have done it the way that they did it, I think it would have ruined it for a lot of people. Like, oh, they just brought her back because it was a happy ending. Not
I got
exactly.
something to say about that.
Well, I have something too, and we're probably on the same thing. Go ahead.
Well, it was the direct, because the very first time I saw that, there was a part of that scene that left me kind of wondering, like, I wonder what that means. And that was the black mark on her neck.
Yes.
The director finally admitted what that was.
Please tell me.
he said that the black mark indicated that she was infected with G cells, which are Godzilla cells, if you can't figure that out. So that's why she's alive. That's why she doesn't look harmed, because G cells are regenerative, as we saw at the ass end of the very last shot of the movie.
Yeah.
So that's why she is alive. She got infected. She's now healing because of those G cells. But the implications going forward, that's
We're not
what
sure
we don't
yet.
know. Exactly.
Yeah.
So
And see that,
I'm curious what his
Yeah.
intentions are with that.
and see that was my thing. Like they just show you just enough of it, and I'm just like, oh, please don't let this be something bad. Please let her be okay.
Yeah.
Like, because I felt so much for these characters, and I'm like, please let them be okay. Because I don't want anything bad to happen to these people, beyond what's already happened to them. And then we cut to the pieces of Godzilla reforming and everything in the water, which made me think, what if all of the chunks of Godzilla, what if there were enough chunks of him that we get like another smaller version of Godzilla or something of that nature? Like, I was thinking about that, but just one little gripe. I only had one little gripe about the movie, and it's just one scene, and it just really threw me off. So he spends all this time, charging that atomic breath, and it to me it feels like it's a big feat every time he does it, and I don't feel like it's something that can just be turned off. So when they pull him under the water and he reaches the depth, he's in full atomic breath mode, and then out of nowhere, and I understand it's the pressures hitting him and everything, but out of nowhere it's like it just clicks off. He goes dark completely, and I don't know. To me, when I saw that scene, I was like, what? Like, it just threw me off. And I don't know if you felt the same, but I guess I understand that it could just shut off. But I also thought maybe there would be a little more something to it, if that makes sense.
I think it was more like his body was being strained by being pulled under. So now you had the depths, the weight of that kind of upon him. So it probably wore him out. Or
Yeah.
he was just like, shit, I can't maintain this, so I've got to turn it off or something like that. So he weakened as he was being drug under.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of made it shut off.
I guess if I would have seen like a little shock wave when everything would have clicked off or something, nothing like out of his mouth, but just like a ripple or something, maybe that might have, but I don't know what it is, but I get where you're coming from, and that makes sense. And I have to admit, I loved when they started pulling him back up, and he looks pissed. And they're basically hoping he would decompress and explode. That let's be real, that's what they were hoping. But
Yeah.
he's healing, and you see him healing the whole time. I thought that was amazing, the way that they were able to do that effect. And keep in mind, this film's budget was minuscule compared to what most films are. And I just recently had a conversation about that too with someone, about too big of a budget. I think hurts films these days because they throw all the money into, well, let's get all these name brand actors that are huge, and let's go over the top and add as many effects in as we can. Doesn't mean they're always good effects, but let's add them all in. But this film, just the way that they had it all put together, the way that everything felt refined, and just, I'll say it, in a sense, kind of gritty in some ways, because it's a very gritty, a very difficult time that these people are going through. And you get to follow that story. And I know you had talked about, him struggling with being a kamikaze pilot and the PTSD and everything. They did a great job at portraying that, I feel.
Yeah. I think what makes this work, and to the point I think you're trying to make here, is that this felt like the very first time people in these movies were taking it seriously. And I'm not saying that every Godzilla movie has an opportunity to play it this serious, because obviously the subject matter, they're just like, well, we got to get the monsters to where they're doing, and then they clash and yada, yada, yada. So even if, say, one of the other ones, they were played a lot straighter, a bit more serious, that it would still have the same impact. I don't think the stories in some of those other movies would play the same, even if you tried to make it more serious, because again, the story that you're crafting doesn't necessarily lend itself to that. But if they wanted to go this route going forward, I think it's going to be tricky, because this is going to be the template going forward. This is the one that made it big. In fact, I'm glad you kind of brought it up too, because I read this morning that it broke yet another record. The first movie in history to hold the #1 spot on Netflix and iTunes simultaneously.
Wow.
So it's setting a precedent for the character.
Yeah. And even to just talk about Godzilla in this film, I'm used to seeing a certain type of Godzilla. They've never flat out come out and been like, he's a hero. in a sense, Godzilla's always sort of, at least from how I've seen him in films, been more of a heroic type character. Kind of how Venom is in the comics. He's not quite a bad guy. He's not quite a hero. He shows up, he kicks ass. Normally, it benefits humanity.
Yeah, it's throughout the decades, there are eras of that hero or that type, because you start, obviously, he's just the metaphor, he's the bomb. And then when you start getting into, all right, monster fight monster, let's go. He stays the villain for, I'd say, 3 or 4 movies after the original. Yeah. And then there's like this, I think it was Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, when they introduced that character. And there was that whole movie. So it was kind of what they did. King of the Monsters was a pseudo remake of that in some aspects, because you had Godzilla, Rodan, Mothra going up against King Ghidorah. So in that one, Godzilla was like, bear with me here. They had a conversation. The monster had a conversation. And Mothra was like, hey, this guy's a bigger threat, and you guys are pretty strong. So if you could help me kind of take him down, for the sake of the Earth, it would be great. And they're just like, fuck. And one of them swore at some point, because I remember there was a dub where it's like, oh, Godzilla, what language? So Godzilla probably told Mothra to get fucked or something like that. We don't know, because we can't speak the language. But eventually they say, all right, well, fine. They'll be good heroes or whatever. And then obviously from that point on, he becomes the hero type, up to the point to in the 70s where he became the champion hero. Like the kids are like, and I think that was a lean toward Gamera, where Gamera was like the hero of children or something like that. So like, well, fuck that. Godzilla can be the hero of children too. So let's, try to make him a little bit more kid friendly. And then you devolve into the shit that people are like, well, this is horrible.
Yeah, and it's even like the American version that we have now. I've seen countless memes of Godzilla and Mothra and their love, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. We're telling this story here, but to do the type of Godzilla that they did in Minus One, and to understand what that means to that society and to those people and everything, the significance is huge. And the fact that he's just this savage animal, I mean, that's really what he is in this. He's this savage animal that is just taking over territory, just this territorial beast that doesn't know what mercy is. It's phenomenal as far as adding the scare factor to Godzilla. Like, this makes you terrified of Godzilla. You're like, I've never seen Godzilla quite like this. And as weird as it sounds, I feel like this film would set up especially like a Destroyer type monster. I would love to see the I cannot think of his name. He worked on the ship with the main character. He was the one that come up with the plan to try to kill Godzilla initially. You know what I'm talking about. I just can't think of his name. Yeah. I could see him coming up with a plan sort of like what they came up with to try to kill Godzilla, the thing that created Destroyer. And in all honesty, if they did a film like that with the same aesthetic as this one, I would be okay with that, I think, because I feel like they could pull it off. I feel like they could do it justice. And I was thinking about this now that you've said, she's got the G cells and everything. What if there was a time jump between the films? And what if the cells in her kept her, let's not say like young, but kept her very youthful. And so she has to watch the man that, because they end up falling in love and everything. She ends up seeing the man that she loves getting old and feeble, and she's still there. What if the cells slowed her aging? And so we have to face that battle, as well as what if Godzilla went into hiding or it took a long time for him to fully come back. I could see something like that working. I'm not saying that I'm like trying to pitch ideas or anything, just something that kind of popped into my brain. But as long as they can keep that emotional level to it, I would be okay with that, because I'll be honest, the legendary Godzilla that we got in 2014, in all of the commercials and everything that I had seen, I thought Bryan Cranston was going to be a much bigger part of that movie. Yeah. And his character was fantastic in the film, I thought. Great story, everything. And then they killed him off. And I wish that they would have played around with that a little bit more. I hope that the studios over here look at Minus One And I hope that first off, I hope they don't rip it off completely. But I hope they take some notes from it and show that you can still have the giant monsters, but still have that human element.
I don't think they're going to see it that way.
Probably not.
Because, and the only reason I point this out, as big as this movie was, the new Empire also made bank, and they're just like, well, people still like this, smashy monster thing, so we can keep going that route. If they could find a way to do both, that would be phenomenal. But I would trust that the Japanese filmmakers are going to do it better than
I think
the American.
so.
No offense to whoever's going to be. Well, we know who's taking it over. In fact, we'll talk about that real quick because there is a new guy. And let me find his name real quick. Who is taking over for the next Godzilla Kong installment? Because I think. Let me ask you that, just out of curiosity, are you itching, at least in the legendary MonsterVerse, or do you want them to do more solo stuff, or are you okay? Do you want more team up movies?
I had seen somebody say something about we've gotten to focus on Kong. Things have kind of gravitated toward Kong a little bit. I would love to see at least a solo movie about Godzilla because he's this massive, great titan. But we've seen that there's other giant apes like Kong. We've seen some titan, hints that some titans might have other, members of their species. I would love to see more about Godzilla's history. I think that would be really cool to see. Mm. And I don't want him to do it so much that it, removes all of the mystery from this character that was created. But I could do without a team up for a film or two. I think if they did a really decent standalone project or, a one-off or something like that, I think that would be good.
Yeah. I'm kind of in the same boat. Like, there's part of me that does enjoy getting to see them together, and I wouldn't say no to it, but at the same time, I don't feel like every MonsterVerse movie going forward has to be the two of them together. So if they wanted to do something different, if they wanted to do a standalone with one or both of them, I would be kind of okay with that because I'm afraid that their plans going forward are going to back them into a corner to where there's really nothing interesting and it just kind of gets dull and rote. Like Grant Spatori, by the way, if I'm saying his name right, he's the guy who got the job. He really doesn't have a hefty filmography from what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
But if he's a fan of the material, and I mean, I want him to be a fan of the material, like from everything.
Yeah.
Not just, I just love the MonsterVerse movies. No. All the way the fuck back, dude. All of it. That's what you want to pull from. That's what you want to study and examine. You know how these characters are, how they should react, all that stuff. Don't make them do something stupid. Don't make Godzilla start dancing and shit like that. And I know some people would just be like, "Oh, that's awesome." It'd be weird with that version, the man in the suit thing. You let a lot of shit go because you're like, yeah, this is silly, but that's weird.
I want to say this real quick because I feel like this has a lot of bearing. Certain films, I think directors like you're saying, they need to be a fan of them completely. And then there are other times where I do feel like you need someone to step in who maybe necessarily isn't completely familiar with the material. And what I mean by that, when we got Freddy vs. Jason, the director of that film, he flat out said, I had never really seen the Friday the 13th films or the Nightmare on Elm Street films. I was never really a big fan of that whole thing, but he made himself familiar with the material and he thought about the characters. And speaking of like Asian films and things, he did a lot of it based off of, he said, I sort of saw Jason like this samurai warrior who is reluctant to take on the task that's been appointed to him, but he takes on the task. And then when he is betrayed, sort of like what happens in the film, he has to go about taking out the one that betrayed him, and anyone that got in the way was just unfortunate. So Freddy was very much the villain of that film. And sure. Jason was sort of like a anti-hero type role. And for what it is, it works for the film. Mm. So, but I think with Godzilla, with how long Godzilla's been around, because let's be real, me making any kind of comparison between Godzilla and Freddy and Jason, that's not anything that needs to happen, for the simple fact that Godzilla's been around a lot longer than they have. A lot longer.
70 years this year.
So you should at least be somewhat familiar with what your source material is. I'm not saying that you have to comb over everything, but let's say out of all the Godzilla films, you have 20 films that you absolutely love. I'd rather you be the one working on a film than have some guy that's like, yeah, I've only seen 2 of them.
Well, and even in that regard, I'll even kind of backtrack what I said just a tad and say, at least respect the material. You're not coming in just being like, this is a job, whatever the fuck, I don't care, you do whatever. Respect the material. If you can't do that, then you don't need to be working on it. And I think that goes for any film. If it's not your genre, don't fucking deal with it. Let somebody who understands it and can possibly put a new spin or bring something new to the table. And that's what I'm kind of hoping this guy will do, is that maybe there was something about him that they were just like, all right, he's got a great idea. He can energize this franchise, bring a new perspective to it, or something that we maybe haven't thought of. And his take can be something unique. That's what I'm kind of hoping for. So we'll see. That's really all I can say. I'm kind of hoping, as far as story goes, since they've shot themselves in the foot trying to make a bigger bad, and he was just kind of like, I think we're going to have to go aliens, man. I don't think it's going to be that far-fetched at this point, because you've already implied as much with Ghidorah, and why not bring those people, like another alien race? I would hope to see Gigan. He's that one popular kaiju that everyone likes to bring up. I'm a fan. I would love to see him in the MonsterVerse.
Yeah.
And he would be a formidable threat, too.
I've been hearing a lot of rumors about Space Godzilla, and I feel awful because I can't remember. There is a, plant-based...
Oh, Bioland.
Yes. That was the big one I've heard a lot about. I don't know if it's just people want that one, or if they've just been tossing that idea around, but...
Well, between Biollante and Space Godzilla, they are kind of intertwined. In the story of Space Godzilla, there were apparently some G cells that went into space thanks to Biollante and Mothra. Got them brought out into the stratosphere of space, and it hit with they went into a black hole, I think is what they said the story was. These cells went into the black hole, and then they formed Space Godzilla. So some pseudo-scientific jargon that apparently created this kaiju. I guess I'm not keen on the idea of Space Godzilla, because maybe that's because he's just been in one movie, and it's just kind of like, he didn't feel like the formidable threat he should have. Now, if they can change that, go for it. But again, that's why I kind of lean toward Gigan, thinking that he would be a better suitable name. Space Godzilla does sound cool and can look cool, but what are you going to do that makes it just go like, oh my God, yes. But Biollante would actually be, I didn't really think about it, but if you wanted to keep it grounded and kind of avoid the space thing, that actually wouldn't be a bad idea, because you could have someone who maybe is studying the G cells, trying to use them, kind of what they did in the movie, I guess, the original movie, is study them, see if you can maybe work out some way of extrapolating how it heals, how it regenerates, and then you can apply that to medical stuff, and then it just falls into the wrong hands or goes sideways, and then obviously we get the giant kaiju.
And see, to backtrack real quick on what I was talking about with Minus One, and if they did a sequel and they did a time jump, that was something that I was thinking about. What if doctors were trying to, let's say the main girl is not the only person that got affected. Let's say a lot of people got affected with them.
I'd say tons of people were.
and let's say all these people have reached a point where, their loved ones are getting older, decrepit, they're dying. And these people don't want to, essentially live forever or outlive their loved ones. So they're trying to find a cure for, whatever's happening to their bodies because of the G cells. And what if in that they find a way to fight Godzilla again? Maybe a different way to kill Godzilla or something. And, things happen. Some monster is born from it. I've seen a little bit about, you said Biollante is what it's called. Mm-hmm. Seems like a pretty solid enemy. I mean, from what I've seen.
I think it's a fun character. and the movie in which it's a very hard one to find. I don't even think you can find it on streaming, but it was a very interesting concept because I don't think it really kind of seen anything like that before. And of course, that movie also introduced I don't want to say first in a sense, first reoccurring character in a series. Like, I think Dr. Yamada showed up in 2 movies, in like the original Godzilla movie and then the sequel. And that's it. Like, you never saw him again. Miki Sagusa, who was introduced in that, she then became a constant throughout all the movies in the 90s. And I thought that was kind of a neat thing. She may not have been front and center in every movie, but she was a constant face that became important by the end. And they could also introduce the God damn it, the psychic thing. I mean, at this point with the MonsterVerse movies, you throw it at the wall. Who cares, you know?
Yeah, I mean, here's an idea. There's a Godzilla fighting game that came out like years ago, and it has a ton of Godzilla enemies and everything. I think it's got like as many as they could put in them at the time. Just have the producers sit down and fight each other in the game, and whichever one wins, that's the monster they put in the next movie. Let's just do that. That solves all the problems. Yeah. It makes me laugh though, because it's always the like out there characters. Like the Space Godzilla one, I didn't know that was Space Godzilla's origin story, so that's just batty.
Yeah.
Crazy, but Biolente's story's kind of nuts. But he's a cool looking villain. Mm-hmm. And then
I don't even know if you'd call him a villain. Some people might argue that it's the good guy out of the
True. That's true. And then let's just say Destroya's story is just nuts. Destroya is just what? The combination of a bunch of sea life that's been radiated, basically.
Pretty much. I mean, it was the oxygen destroyer that was used on the original Godzilla, and then it in this what do you call them, trilobites or some whatever the fuck, I don't remember. I know that if somebody knows the details better than I do, I have seen the movie many times, but some of that psycho or this science pseudoscience jargon is a little like there's a lot. But yeah, it was some microorganism that was in the sand or wherever the bomb went off, and then it radiated, and now we've got Destroyer.
I want a mutated horseshoe crab type creature that when it lifts up all the way, its shell opens up and it has extra arms and stuff that come out and grab Godzilla. Mm-hmm. That'd be cool.
I'd love to see more. I know that it's costly because Toho is very, understandably so. They don't want to see all their monsters get shit on, but I think they'll do them right. And I wish they would cut a better deal with Legendary to allow them to play with their toys more. Because I think that's why we haven't seen as many famous kaiju, as it were. And I say famous in the sense that if you're familiar with Godzilla's universe in Japan, you know who these monsters are. If you're not, it's fair. I understand that not everybody's going to know them.
Now, I did hear something that was kind of interesting, too. So in Godzilla Kong, New Empire, I have not seen it yet, but I've seen clips of it.
Comes out on Blu-ray. Well, it should be out by the time you're listening to this. I mean, it's on streaming or pay to stream or whatever, but physical media is out this week.
So the same guy that pulls Kong's tooth and replaces it also does his gauntlet. I've been hearing, and I don't know who it is, there is like a mech suit in the old Godzilla movies or something that somebody pilots, or it was a crossover film of some kind. Maybe it wasn't a Godzilla movie, but maybe Godzilla like showed up in it.
Well, okay, I think I know where you're going with this. So I read or I saw a video about this possible crossover rumor thing. So some of the ideas that are going around, and like you said, using the mech suit arm as an example. They said that they've been working on this, yada yada, whatever. And some of the monster or robots, I don't remember what the proper term they use for giant robots, tokusatsu maybe, or something like that. I don't know. There are some. Mogera, I think, was the one that they were probably referencing, since Mogera was seen in Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla. It was piloted by members of G-Force. It was like recommissioned or whatever to be a battle robot, so to speak. Kind of in the same vein of Mechagodzilla within that universe. because Mechagodzilla was also piloted and whatnot. So you have a few of those. So that's probably the one that they were referencing. However, this video that I watched pointed some shit out that only a keen eye would have noticed, and I completely missed it. They said if you pay attention to the blueprints for that arm or for the suit that they were building, it is the identical blueprints for the Jaeger in Pacific Rim.
Huh.
And since Legendary owns Pacific Rim, there's potential for a possible reboot crossover thing, maybe. I don't know.
That would be kind of weird, seeing Godzilla possibly fight the creatures from Pacific Rim. Like, that would be sort of it brings in the alien aspect, I guess.
And I don't feel like it's that far-fetched either. I mean, wasn't that supposed to be kind of futuristic? So
yeah,
this could be pre that if they wanted to do that. Now, I'm not saying that's what they're doing. Hell, that could have just been a little Easter egg they threw in to be like, hey, look, that's a thing. So I'm not going to put a lot of faith in that, because they can do whatever they want and whatnot. I would personally like to see Mogera. I think that the Pacific Rim thing, as fun as that movie was, and I know there are two. I never saw the second one. Did you?
No.
I didn't either.
No, I
yeah.
didn't.
I think that speaks a lot to it. Not to knock it or anything. Again, I think the first one was fun. I think it was a fun movie, but it's not Godzilla. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I don't feel like that's going to be as big of a draw as they might assume it would be. So I don't know if you'd want to do that or not.
Just to say this real quick, I think that's why a lot of giant monster movies struggle. I think we're so used to seeing Godzilla and Kong. Like, everybody has their own. Giant monsters are almost like slashers. You have your favorites, and it's kind of hard to get into new ones.
Yeah.
And I think that's why some films struggle, because here we are talking about Godzilla, and he's been around for 70 years, like you said, coming up on 70 years. But I can't tell you the last time I've watched even sequels to some of these giant monster movies that are out. You like what you like.
Yeah. And I hate it, but it makes you just get stuck in your ways. You can't help it. And so, like, me personally, if they wanted to do more solo Kong movies, I'd be all for it. I've got all the Godzilla I could ever want, and I can't wait to see more, because there will be more, but I don't feel like I've gotten enough of him. So I want to see more of him and his adventures. And now I feel like you've set it up proper.
And that's the thing about these characters too. Like, Godzilla was here before us. Kong was here before us. They're going to be here after us. They'll probably still be telling some form of these films, or in some, if film no longer exists, it'll be something else, but it'll still be there. And that just shows you, like, the test of time with all of this. Mm-hmm. So my random brain just thought of something. Speaking of film and things changing, I don't know if you've seen anything about this. I saw a brief video about it, but some streaming services are starting to play around with software so that you could come home after a long day. You could talk to your TV or whatever device you're using for this on your streaming service, and you could tell it, I want to see a movie where Batman and Spider-Man team up to fight the Joker. And this artificial intelligent program will be able to create that for you. It'll be an animated thing. It won't be, live action. But apparently they're already playing around with this idea. And like the guy that I watched said, he said, if you think about it, it's only going to be as bad as it is bad today. It's only going to get better. They're only going to make it work better. And that scares the hell out of me. But part of me also kind of likes the thought, because I could maybe see things that I've always wanted to see play out that I know would never happen. But I also worry, what if you have a genuinely good idea and you want to see it, and then they steal it and they make money off of you because of it?
Exactly. Yeah,
and
there
that
are
right there, yeah,
legal ramifications behind that, because I cannot fathom that would go over. Because just the example you put out alone, Warner Brothers and Disney both would be coming at that.
And see, I would assume that you are paying for the streaming service, but if they don't charge you extra for that feature, is that a loophole that allows you to get around it? If they don't show it to anybody else and it's specifically made for you, are there loopholes around that? But copyright law and all of that is constantly changing. So It scares the hell out of me, though.
Yeah, because I can see the loophole of what you're talking about, because it almost sounds like you could be like, well, it's fan fiction. So people write that stuff all the time, and they post it up on their blogs or whatever. So could that fall into the category of fan fiction or a fan-made film, as it were?
Yeah.
How do you navigate that loophole?
Yeah.
Because like you said, if it was for you personally, I could see that like they would have no leg to stand on.
Yeah.
But if it was something that you asked for and then created, and then it now became part of a block of things that they offer because somebody else came up with the idea, it gets a little tricky.
And to me, it almost sounds like, well, what if the streaming services are in business with the studios, and studios are running out of ideas? What if the studios are monitoring what people are talking about, and they look at it and go, well, a lot of people have had a similar idea about something. Why don't we make a movie about that?
Mm-hmm. And that worries me too, because just this week, Adobe apparently put out new terms of service. I don't know if you saw this or not, but it doesn't set right with me, because the way the terminology came off is that they would have access to any and everything that I create. Like they could see it and just observe upon it. And I don't like that.
I don't either.
I know I'm going to be putting it out into the world, sure, but you're monitoring everything that I'm creating.
Right.
I don't like that.
Why do eyes need to be prying that much?
Exactly. So, and obviously they're just like, no, we don't, no, it's not going to be like that. It's like, well, if it's not going to be like that, then why are you putting this in your terms of service? Why are you making it sound like that's what you're going to be doing? It doesn't track.
You're good. Weird noise.
I got airplanes going by, so it doesn't matter.
We're professionals, people. We have lives.
Yeah.
I might leave this in the show because it's funny.
I'm surprised you don't hear. Well, he's not making the noise now. I was worried that you're going to be hearing. We got a horny goat outside, and he's on his noise. So that's what I've been hearing all morning.
Well, I mean, you could be me. We have 2 female cats, and they tend to go into heat opposite of each other. Mm-hmm. And one of them's in heat right now, and she's the more obnoxious one. So, 2 a.m, you just hear. I'm like,
It must be the time, because we got our cats doing the same thing, walking around the house, just rubbing all over the floor, and then comes out and then walks off into the other room. It's like, shut up.
I always make a joke when our cats are in heat. I always look at my wife and I go, I wish you women were like that when you were in the mood. It would be so much easier for us men. We would know.
Right.
And instead of you getting mad that we didn't take your subtle hint, oh, you stomped on my foot. That was the hint. That was the hint. Really?
Really?
Just meow at me. Just meow at me.
Yeah.
We're not furries, but just meow at me.
Try to be a little handsy, and you're just like, huh? Is that floating your boat, and then nothing happens? You're like, all right, well, I guess not.
I mean, meow at me, and then if you're not, hiss at me. Just do it. Yeah. It's just that simple.
I can understand hisses. I get the hint. Anyway.
Oh man.
Well, we've gone on for almost an hour talking about kaiju and shit. Do you want to?
You know what? Let's just talk about kaiju and shit. Let's just keep the conversation going. How we've had it going. I mean, do you have any random news things? Because we can talk about that too. I feel like this has just been like a sort of loose but fun episode. So
yeah. Well, I did want to do a shout out, because we got a comment on one of our episodes. A few back. I'm trying to remember which one it was. Wasn't last week. God damn it. Doesn't matter. We were talking about a movie, as we do, and someone decided to send us some recommendations. So I wanted to give them a shout out and be like, hey, appreciate the recommendations that you have. I still want to find the movie for some reason. It's going to bother me if I don't find out which. I think was it the Jason universe? No, it wasn't. The Autopsy of Jane Doe. Duh.
There it is.
There we go. There we go. Anyway, user by the name of Del the Ghost, shout out to Del the Ghost. Thank you for listening. Recommended that if we haven't seen it yet, recommended a movie called Backtrack, which I did look up. Came out in 2015, has Adrian Brody as the lead.
Okay.
They recommended it, and it says it's a psychotherapist has nightmares and sinister visions of ghosts, maybe? Is it more than his daughter's death causing this? He returns to his childhood home, and dad, I guess his dad is still in the home, I guess, and dad to put things to rest. So, recommended that.
Okay.
And then the other, and I know I've heard of this one, Devil from 2010. I think this was co-written by M. Night Shyamalan, and it took place on an elevator.
Yes, I've seen that movie.
Yeah. So they recommended those as two choice things to check out, I guess, on top of The Autopsy of Jane Doe. So appreciate the recommendations. I haven't seen either, so Devil's one of those that I've eyeballed, but I've never checked out. So
I've watched Devil twice. The first time I watched it, I was like, meh. The second time I watched it, I appreciated it more, but I think I was in a different mindset. It's one of those films, it is a slow burn, like The Autopsy of Jane Doe. But it was one of those things where I feel like the first time I watched it, I was just sort of impatient for whatever reason. But when I gave it another chance, I was like, man, this is actually a lot better than I thought it was going to be. So,
Sure.
And I've never even heard of Backtrack, so we will definitely have to check that one out.
Sure. What?
While my
Before it?
brain is braining today, you're on your computer here.
Mhm.
So the movie In a Violent Nature
Yes.
has a guest star on it, and I cannot think of her name. She was in Friday the 13th Part 2, and she hasn't been in any movies for a little while, but she came and joined them for a little cameo, as it were, on In a Violent Nature. So I'll have to see if I can find the article, see who it was. But I thought that was something that you would appreciate.
Well, since you brought it up, I want to touch on it real quick. Have you seen any reviews for the movie?
I've seen a few. What I've seen has been good. I mean,
I've been getting mixed vibes out of my reviews, and I hate that. I was really hoping for something solid across the board, but I'm hearing that it does some really interesting stuff, but at the end of the day, it's just kind of and I hate that I'm hearing that because I was really looking forward to that. And I'm not saying I still won't watch it. I was really hoping for, and it might be one of those that some people like, some people don't. Maybe they don't appreciate the approach or whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Well, and let's be honest. Even the best of movies, you're going to have people that hate. I mean, it does happen. Especially with horror. I've never seen everybody agree fully on a horror film. You know, I know people that don't like Nightmare on Elm Street. I know people that don't like Friday the 13th. People who don't like Halloween. You know, everybody has their cup of tea, and if it's not your cup of tea, then, you know, it's just not. Lauren Marie Taylor, who played Vicky in Friday the 13th Part 2.
Vicky. I'm gonna have to look her up because those movies are so laden with simple names. Part 2, you said?
Yes.
Vicky. Who's Vicky? You said her name was, say it again.
Lauren Marie Taylor.
Lauren Marie Taylor. And come on. Oh, here we are. Vicky. Do I know Vicky? Trying to see if I can find a younger picture of her. These are not helping.
Did you type in Vicky Friday the 13th? Maybe that would pull her up.
I guess I should. I mean, I'm looking at her face and I'm just like, okay, yeah, but I can't place her in the movie like who Vicky is. So that's on me. I don't remember. Doesn't matter. Okay, awesome. Vicky was in the movie. That's all I can say.
I just thought it was cool.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah, now I know who Vicky is. She had the hots for the guy in the wheelchair. Okay. Cool.
We figured it out.
Any more to that story before I
no, I wanted to tell you that because I thought it was interesting. I guess she hasn't been in very many movies over the last few years. And so she sort of got back into the slasher aesthetic, and I thought that was kind of interesting. I don't know how much of a role she has, but
still
kind of cool. Yeah, you know. So,
first thing I want to bring up is if you're excited. Me personally, I'm kind of like I could do without it, but there's a part of me that probably thinks I'll buy some of this if they'll split it up, because I don't know if I want the whole collection, because I've already got one out of the collection, if you know what I mean. Jaws sequels are getting their 4K release in a 3-pack. So you can get 2, 3, and 4 on not Blu-ray, 4K if you want this summer. I've already got part 2 on 4K. I don't really know if I want 3 and 4 on 4K, because who cares? You know, I mean, they're. I don't want to say, we've talked about them at length. 3 is fine. 4 is just, I don't even want to talk about it. Anyway, Midsummer's coming back to theaters this week.
Well,
matter of fact.
What was it? Oh,
Midsummer.
yes.
Director's cut on June 20th in IMAX. So that should be this, by the time this is out, you'll have enough warning to buy your tickets.
Can I say something about that movie real quick? That movie's trippy. I enjoyed it. But every time I watch that movie, I think to myself, I wonder if this is a movie that people are supposed to take acid before they watch. Because it kind of feels like that sometimes. It kind of does.
I mean, there's some movies they say, you know, get high first and then watch it, and then you'll enjoy it all the more.
Right?
So maybe. Who knows? We might have to try that out. Mike, I think we've talked about this, or at least thought this was the direction, but it does seem like Mike Flanagan is set and ready for the next Exorcist film. I'm anxious to see what he does, even though I never watched Believer. I know I could, but I've not just not gotten around to it, man, because I have this hang up. If I hear enough negativity around some shit, it makes me avoid it.
Yeah.
Like, why am I going to waste my time?
Right.
And I hate that I'm in that mindset, because he could be following up of what David Gordon Green set up and just go in a different direction. I don't know, but I want to watch it, but I don't, you know?
Yep.
Like, I set
that.
myself down with the last Fantastic Four movie that came out. And when I heard the vitriol that came from that, I was just like, nope, not going to do it. And I've refused. I have yet to watch that movie, and I'm not gonna. Because why would I? Why would I waste my time on something I know I'm going to hate?
Yeah. No, I get that. I completely get that. There's been a lot of movies that I'm just like, ah.
Yeah.
Have you watched?
Go ahead.
Have you watched The First Omen yet?
Not yet, but it is one of those that I've been trying to get around to. It boils down to getting time alone to watch it on my own. Yeah, no, that whole thing. But hey, somebody's taking a trip soon, so maybe I'll take advantage. Anyway, two movies that are getting 4K updates as well. I feel like I know one, but not the other. Death Dream. Does that sound familiar? Mm-mm. It's a Bob Clark horror movie that was apparently done 50 years ago. So what, 1974? And I know Bob Clark. I mean, he's the one that did Black Christmas and Porky's and A Christmas Story. So I've never heard of this. So I don't know what it is. So I might have to give that a look. And then the other one is from the 90s called Mirror, Mirror. And that one sounds familiar to me, but I cannot say that I've ever seen it. But I know I've heard of it.
Yeah, I was going to say
Anyway, yeah, they're coming to 4K. If that interests you at all. This I'm a little excited about. I'm kind of glad to hear that this casting came down the pipeline. Bill Skarsgård is going to reprise Pennywise in Welcome to Derry.
Yes, I had seen that, and I'm thankful for that, because I feel like he's really made that role his own. So
yeah, I was honestly thinking they were gonna recast, find somebody else, and it wouldn't hit the same, especially right now. You know, he is such in the zeitgeist for that character, you know, so to recast so early. And I know we've had multiple Spider-Man and Batman and Superman and all that stuff. I'm not looking at that as the same thing, you know what I mean? Like, he really personified that character in a way that I don't think a lot of people thought he could hold a candle to Tim Curry, and he did. So I'm eager to see what more he can do with that character.
And,
so
and you know, with the Tim Curry thing, I was kind of like that at first. I'll be honest. I'm like, he's not Tim Curry. But then I thought about it, and I was like, well, you know, Tim Curry played Pennywise in a TV movie, basically. It was like 3 parts. It was a TV thing.
Mm.
This is a feature-length film, so it's a completely different source of media and everything. And for me, looking at it that way helped me get over that hump and realizing that they were, vastly different portrayals of the character.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've ever seen any of the behind-the-scenes stuff from any of the It movies, but it is hilarious. There is a scene in particular. It's the scene where Pennywise is counting with the little girl, and then he attacks her. It's in the second movie. They showed the behind-the-scenes clip, and he jumps at her for real, and he scares her. Well, as soon as they say cut, he's like, "Oh my God, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you good?" And I'm like, that just makes me appreciate him as that character more. And I know that with the prequel, obviously there's going to be, a bunch of kids that get killed, probably all of them. But I think it would be kind of interesting if they had a few kids that actually did escape Pennywise, but they weren't like the Losers Club. They just didn't go back to Derry.
Yeah.
So, but as you were saying, sorry.
No. It's I think that's about all that there is for that. But yeah, I'm excited to hear that he's coming back. I know I posted this on I think our Facebook group, but I just wanted to touch on it again. Eric Anderson, who was in Friday the 13th Part 4, famously, I'm sure he's done a lot of other work. He passed away this past week. If you don't remember his character in Part 4, he was essentially the guy, I can't remember the character name, but he was trying to find Jason and hunt him down because he killed his sister. And I think his sister was one of the kids in Part 2, if I remember correctly, but I can't remember the connection, the through line, or anything like that. But,
Yeah.
Sad for the horror community. I will say that he had probably one of my, favorite. It's just a very amusing line in the movie where Jason attacks him in the basement, and the one girl who's, again, name I can't remember at this moment in time, she's watching him. She's like, freaking out at the top of the stairs. She's like, "Run! He's killing me! He's killing me! Oh God, he's killing me!" And I was like, would you shout that when you're being killed? And you sound like you're doing all right, at the moment. You're just worried that he's going to start killing you. But I just always found that exchange to be so funny. He's killing me! Oh God, he's killing me!
He could have saved his life.
He could have.
He could have yelled something inappropriate. He could have just been like, "He's effing me! He's effing!" And then Jason would have been like, "What?
Whoa! Hey,
wait a minute! I'm a lot of things, but come on,
come on!" We got a new trailer for Alien Romulus, and I'm really stoked for this movie, dude.
Yes.
Prometheus and Alien Isolation were those the last two, I think it was. They, for what they were.
Did they call a movie Alien Isolation, or was that just the game?
Was that the game? What was the last movie? Isolation may have been the game. Hang on. Wait a second. Alien thing. Let's see here. Because not Isolation. What the fuck was it? Come on. Covenant. Yeah.
There it is.
There we go. Covenant. I don't hate them. I don't feel like they're hitting the same notes properly. Like they're trying to do something else, and maybe they should have, but they didn't. So
in all honesty, I don't need the history of the aliens. I don't.
No. And
I want to see them being these feral beasts that live in the galaxy that are dangerous. And it's the director from the Evil Dead.
Yeah, Fede Alvarez.
That's doing, and I'm super psyched for this film. I think the thing that really sold it for me, and I know this is like a minor detail, but in the trailer, when you hear the thump and you're hearing it, and you think it's a heartbeat at first, but then you realize, because she puts the light to her back, and you see the chest burster right in her chest, slapping on the inside of her chest, trying to get out. Freaking loved that. That was phenomenal. And I didn't think face huggers could be any grosser to me than they were before. But when it was in the water and it jumps on that guy and he's like trying to get it off, and you see its little, trying to lay the eggs in his throat, I'm like, ugh. Like
it's trying to rape his face.
And they said something about the original Alien films. If you look at a lot of the things that have to do with the aliens, there is a lot of sexuality there. There's a lot of like phallic shaped things. If you look at a face hugger, it's, let's be honest, part of it looks like a vagina. Part of it looks like, you know, a shaft and other things. Like they talk about this, and it's like a very uncomfortable like conversation. They're like, but we made these things look uncomfortable on purpose because they're naturally, you know, the face huggers, that's what they're made for. They're made to reproduce. So we made them naturally uncomfortable to look at. But that scene where it's wrapped around his neck and he pulls it out of his mouth and everything, I'm like,
Yeah, I think it's going to go back to its roots, back to what made it terrifying in the first place, which I'm really excited about, because it feels like we're going back into that claustrophobic situation from the first movie. Yep. But Fady is also kind of bringing his filmmaking style to it. You know, we know he can build tension. We saw it in Evil Dead. We saw it in Don't Breathe. Mm-hmm. And we also know he has a great ability for gore. Again, for Evil Dead. So what he's going to bring to the table, I'm really excited for. I think we're going to get something. I think we're going to get to see some really fucked up shit in this movie.
Yeah. And just on a side note, I don't know if you thought this from the trailer. I know we only see the like full-grown alien, like we see glimpses of it, but to me this alien doesn't seem as thin and limber as the aliens that I'm used to seeing. This one almost seems a little more bulky. And I'm wondering if it might be like a different, because you know there are, if you like read through the lore of the Alien franchise and everything, you know, there's comics, there's games, there's a bunch of stuff explaining the aliens as a species. There are different versions. They're almost like a beehive in a way. You know, you have your queen, you have your grunts. I still want to see a king alien because there is such thing as a king alien. It's strictly there to fight. That's what it's made for. It's made to defend the nest. And I mean, they are monsters. But this one just seemed, like I said, this one just seemed different to me. It wasn't as, like, it's still got the stealth and everything, but it just seemed a little more bulky. I don't know if you watch the trailer again, look at that and let me know if you think that, because it seemed a little different to me in that regard.
No, I can agree. There was something about it that I couldn't quite put my finger on, but now that you mentioned the size of it, I see what you mean. So I have to keep an eye on that. He might introduce that king alien.
That would be amazing.
Yeah. Another 4K release that, you know what, I think I'd add this one to my collection because it's truly an interesting piece, and a performance alone is why I would own this. Is Poltergeist 2 is coming to 4K thanks to Scream Factory. And I mean, come on, we got to talk about the Reverend. That's the creepiest part of that whole fucking movie is Julian Beck walking down the side. God loves the little children. Hello there. I saw your angel. He just looks like a corpse walking in a priest's outfit. I swear to God.
He does. He really does.
But it's so beautifully creepy, and I love it. So everybody keep your eyes peeled for that. That's coming. I didn't even say a date. Hang on. Let me bring it back up. Date being August 27th. So
imagine walking into a bar and you sit down at the bar and he's on one side of you and the tall man's on the other. That'd be an awkward day.
You talking to me? Another 4K release getting a steelbook, and we just mentioned this movie. Fede Alvarez's Evil Dead getting a steelbook in August. So if you collect those steelbook things, it's coming. I personally could give a shit. Just as long as it works, man. I don't give a damn. X is also re-releasing in theaters if you want to catch up for Maxine, but you know, obviously you can watch it on streaming. I honestly feel like these studios are getting a little desperate to get people back to the theater, which I feel like it's a topic we ought to talk about, because I've been hearing a lot of people talk about theaters are dead and whatnot, and the whole reasons behind that, but that's a big conversation we can get into. Let's see what else we got here that I want to talk about. Maybe I personally would not have given this a thought. Very much kind of what we were talking about with Fallout. You know, how one actor kind of changes your perspective and you might want to check out a thing. Well, apparently there's a Hostel TV series in the works. And Paul Giamatti set
Yeah.
to star. So I'm like, all right, you have my attention. He's one of those actors that I love. I think he's phenomenal in just about everything he's been in. And if
He
you
gives it
haven't,
his all.
oh yeah, 100%. And that movie that came out, The Holdovers.
Yes.
If you've not seen that, go fucking watch that movie because he's chef's kiss in that. You know what I'm saying? Just wonderful. He should have got a fucking Oscar for that, but you know how that whole world works anyway. Oh, I know our audience is going to want to hear this. We're all excited, right? Are you ready? A live action Monster High movies at the Works at Universal Pictures. Oh my god! Oh my god!
Didn't they do it? I'm pretty sure they did a TV movie of that.
I think they did, yeah. But now we're
Like
getting
two of them.
a big budget live action Monster High movie, man. How about that?
Oh,
How
God.
about that? I just want to bring that up just to fuck with people. Anyway,
Ooh.
Jake Gyllenhaal is apparently going to be in The Bride. You know, that's that movie his sister's directing. So he's gonna be in that. As who? I don't know, but he's gonna be in it. So there's no nepotism there. Well, it's not nepotism, is it? I don't know. I think that's when it's parents and kids and whatnot. I don't know how it works with brothers and sisters and all that stuff. The Strangers Chapter 1 will be streaming this week. So if you haven't seen that already, it's out there.
I heard a review of it. And,
Not good?
well, they said for what it was good. But they said it's basically a beat-for-beat remake of the original.
Which,
And that's where they have the problem. And, you know, I get it. They're trying to revamp it because the way that the original two films went, you couldn't really do anything after the second one. I'm not going to knock it till I see it. Just put that out there.
Okay. All right. These are just kind of quickie things. Timothy Oliphant. You just look at his name and you want to say it, and you just don't know how to say it.
I like the
Oliphant.
first one.
Okay, whatever. That guy that you know in all things. He's apparently going to be voicing the Terminator in a Netflix anime series called Terminator Zero. So if you're a fan of his work, I am. I like him. I think he's cool. In fact, if you've ever seen him on Conan O'Brien, like his old talk show, like I didn't realize how close those two had gotten, but apparently they're great friends. And
Really?
They have a good chemistry with one another. So that's pretty cool. And there's a Ghostbusters animated series also coming to Netflix. So not the original, a new series. So I'm assuming it's going to piggyback off of what they've been building in the movies. And there's also, this one kind of is just one of those like, who the fuck cares anymore? Why are we driving this franchise into the ground? The Hotel Transylvania franchise that just got so many straight-to-video movies after
They're doing
while.
a spin-off, aren't they?
Motel Transylvania. Because now we're getting to see them have a motel. And it's going to be on Netflix too. There you go, people.
There's 4 movies, and Adam Sandler didn't voice Dracula in the last one, I don't think.
No, he did not.
So
that shows that he doesn't even care.
they're fun movies for what they are. I'll say that. But yeah,
I don't remember
bury this
watching
thing.
beyond the first one. I don't even know if I watched any like part 2. I was actually really excited to hear about this because I know that I had talked about and recommended to our audience, if you're a fan of Gremlins, to check out The Secrets of the Mogwai.
Yeah.
I genuinely thought it was kind of a one and done, but it was announced that there is going to be a sequel series called The Wild Batch coming to Max this fall.
Nice.
So I'm really excited to hear or to see where that goes. They didn't really show a trailer as of yet. The only trailer that's out there right now is one of those announcement trailers where they just be like, here's the thing, it's a little animation, and we go to a title and ta-da. So that's all that is. But
Their little tease that they do.
I did read a little bit of, I guess, what the synopsis of this is going to be. And it sounds like that they're going to move the family that we followed in the original series going from China to San Francisco. And then whatever chaos ensues there. So it's almost like they are trying to trek the family's journey to New York. At least that's kind of what I'm getting. Because as to my understanding, that's where Kingston Falls was on the East Coast.
Yeah.
So somewhere nearby. It would have to be near New York because the father was in Chinatown getting the Mogwai. So I'm assuming that's what we're doing to some degree. But the only thing I'm really concerned about is that they're not going to try and do anything to where it's like, well, we have to connect these dots. If all you're doing is connecting the dots to Mr. Wing getting to New York, fine. Just don't try to overcomplicate it because it doesn't need to be. We just talked about The Strangers, Chapter 2. Apparently, it's in production right now, and they released an image for the sequel, so I'm assuming we'll have a trailer here pretty soon. So,
yeah, I'm pretty sure that they filmed all of them, like, back-to-back, or at least the last two. I think they filmed them back-to-back, and then all they're focusing on now is, the post-production type stuff. At least that's what I had read somewhere. I don't know how valid that is, but
right.
It sounds like they're trying to get these pumped out as quickly as they can.
Yeah. If you're a fan of The Thing, the John Carpenter film, there is a remaster of the old, I think it was a first-person shooter. I don't think I ever played this game when it came out, but there was a game based on The Thing that came out many years ago. Again, I do not remember this game at all, but there's now a remaster coming. So it looks pretty interesting, pretty good. And if I hear good things about the adjustments of this remaster, and it's not just a new coat of paint, I'll check it out.
John Carpenter even said that game was basically the sequel.
Oh,
so
cool.
Just a fun little tidbit. Somebody asked him one time why he never did a sequel, and he said, "Well, there's a video game that's pretty much the sequel."
So there you go. I think that might be all that I have in news, because I don't see anything else that's really jumping out at me. So yeah, there we go. There's all the news for today. It's all
very nice. Well, we kind of did the show a little different today. We just started talking about random stuff.
It's fine. We just went a little ass backwards.
Yeah, I really have nothing. I guess this was another review of Godzilla Minus One after I saw it.
We talked about other kaiju stuff and other possibilities that we could go. So, I think we did a kaiju talk. That's what we did.
It's our kaiju horror episode. We'll have to save that other idea for another episode. And I think we should talk about the movie theaters at some point when we get the chance to discuss that. But I have nothing else right at the moment. If you don't, I mean, we can close this sucker out if you like. You could tell all those wonderful horror ramblers out there where they can find us.
Well, ramblers, what did you think about doing everything ass backwards? Because that's what we did today. But let us know on Twitter or any other social media at Horror Ramblings if you've got any thoughts or opinions on the kaiju stuff that we talked about. Like, what did you think of Godzilla Minus One? What are your ideas for the next Japanese kaiju film or the Legendary series? Let us know. You can also send us an email at horrorramblings@gmail.com. You can join our Facebook group or join us on Discord. You can even find us on Instagram and TikTok. If you're feeling generous, you can head on over to Patreon and chuck in $1. Help the show grow by leaving a 5-star review on your favorite podcasting app, and tell your friends to do so as well. And check on Spotify to see if we have any questions and polls this week. Finally, find everything over at pencilpaperproductions.com/horror-ramblings. Links are in the show notes down below.
And remember, guys, stay spooky out there.
This has been the Horror Ramblings podcast. Join us next time for even more.
This has been a Pencil and Paper Podcast Network production.